Happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome back to our No Code Ops live community show. I hope you're doing well wherever in the world you are joining us from. And actually, if you are watching us now, you're watching us live, do use the chat. Tell me where you're joining from. Tell me your role, maybe, and tell me about your journey in no code. Lots of things, lots of interaction items for you there. And if this is your first time here, we are No Code Ops, an international community for operations professionals who leverage the power of no code and automation to scale up their career. And so, if you've been following our community for a while, you know that we host these free webinars every Thursday to try and equip you with the best skills and knowledge out there. And we recently started this mini series featuring Jessica de Oliveira, who's also one of the educators from our No Code Ops Academy. And so I'm just going to pull her in. Hello, Jessica. Welcome back.
Hi, everybody. I am happy to be here again today for part two of our three-part series.
Our part two of our mini series, rightfully so. And as you can see, I'm sat down, so my Wi-Fi is working today. So that makes for a good day every day.
Yeah.
For those people who might be joining us today on our episode two, would you like to briefly introduce yourself, Jessica? Because you're amazing. I know that you're amazing, but not everyone knows that you're amazing. So tell us a little bit about your background, and maybe we can recap shortly what we discussed on our episode one.
Okay. Thank you so much for all the compliments. But yeah, so I probably had a similar story to a lot of other people with just being curious and tinkering with things. So I'm coming from learning no code into teaching no code into analyzing no code and low code platforms for enterprises and small businesses, and just being a part of making no code and citizen development really a part of the way that we do work and pushing forward the initiative to make it a widely accepted skill amongst all organizations. So that's the mission of Mission Citizen. And that's why we're here sharing with the No Code Ops family, which I love you guys and what you do every Thursday. So that's a little bit about me. But as far as like what we talked about last week we talked about skills in the workforce and how transitioning into the no code ops professional world and the citizen development world, it's not as hard as you think it is. It's already some of the skills that we're already utilizing today, except what's changing, while we've already had these amazing skills and we've been tinkering and utilizing these softwares, now the organizations that we work in, they're getting on board with the idea and they're catching up to us in all of our amazingness. And they're saying, hey, we want more people who know how to take charge in their department, create solutions to the problems, because guess what? Our IT team is really busy helping us run the organization with those mission critical applications. We need you guys to step up and use those great skills that you have. So that's what we talked about. We talked about the skills that you already have and how that translates into a no code ops professional position or a citizen development position. And for those who are really skilled, into a low code development position.
Absolutely. And if you're particularly curious about episode one, I think it was called No Code Entering the Workforce.
Yeah.
And so one of the most amazing key takeaways that I still remember from last week and it was kind of a haha moment for me, light bulb, um, when Jessica told me that basically, yes, what she's saying right now, all the skills that you already have, all the things that you were doing, they still apply to today's world. You just need to integrate and add sort of the no code and automation word and obviously practice into what you already know how to do. So
Yes.
I'm super excited. It's great to be having this mini series with you, because if I had a penny for all the times I've seen people thinking or saying like, oh, no code is just a way, it's just a nice way to say code, because at the end of the day, you need to learn how to code. That potentially, but not always. It's not always the case. And also, specifically for today's event, the amount of people that I've seen saying like, Claudia, there's too many tools out there. I don't know which one to pick. I don't know which one to be focusing on. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And so this episode in particular is for you.
Yeah, this is the number one question that I've been asked in like every position in every environment, whether I was teaching or consulting and advising. It's which is the best platform for us to use. So that just goes to show me that everyone has that question, whether you are coming from a development perspective, like you're learning to become a developer in the no code space or the low code space, or you're an organization that's looking to adopt a tool for your team and to build
Mm,
solutions, or an agency, like what's the best tool for us to stick to for our agency as the main tool to develop solutions for our clients. So that number one question, I'll reply with the same answer I give everyone. You're asking the wrong question first, right? The first question that you should ask is, what problem am I solving?
there
Right?
you go.
What problem am I solving? So the thing is that with no code tools in general, let's say application development platforms, they're pretty much just general development platforms where you can create a visual interface, you can integrate your data, and you can create processes and automations to things. Sometimes that's an all-in-one platform, sometimes it's, separate. But the idea is that they all, even though they're all the same on the underlying level, they all excel at a particular set of things for a particular audience of people. And with that being said, you have to choose the problem you are solving so that you can align yourself with the right type of solution that you would need to build that on, right? So, as far as the problem we're solving, the common problems that we're going to be looking at. Now, there's a lot of ways to phrase this, right? But when we're talking about operations professionals and we're talking about citizen developers and small businesses and in big enterprises, these are a lot of the main problems and they overlap in a lot of different ways. So, data transparency and protection, that is like top of the list. Organizations want to mitigate risk as much as possible, and it's usually aligned with data and who's using the data and how you're using the data, and can we see who these people are and what they're doing with it, right? So if you're looking to make sure that we have data in a space where we can see who's doing what, no code platforms that are have more advanced features, they have these built in already, but you need to integrate your data into them so that you can do and create what it is that you need to create to solve the problem in your department or in the organization as a whole. So data transparency might be a challenge. This is particularly actually something that is an issue in organizations where the employee may need to solve a problem, but it's on a backlog or a list of things where they're at the bottom of the list,
Mm,
right? And on average, that backlog takes about 2 years to actually get to you once you're added to the list. So most people start tinkering with their own solutions and organizations get a little bit weary. So that's where no code platforms come in to help them build solutions for themselves, and they can actually see what's happening rather than what they call shadow IT, rather than someone creating something that no one knows what they're doing with it, right?
mm-hmm.
So the other option is we develop solutions already. We just need to reduce our development costs. We need to reduce our development cycle, which also brings us to faster development. Uh, that's another problem that might be you're solving. And the next three, these three, kind of mix them up here, but progress tracking and communication. If we need to stay in touch with our team, we need to be updated or be able to see instantly what's going on without having to hold a meeting or to get into the chat. You can see that in a lot of the tools that are out there with progress tracking and communication built all in one, or the ability to build it all in one. And usually this affects operational efficiency, how quickly business is happening, by moving things from a manual perspective of like putting a meeting on the calendar and then it's talking about it and checking it off on a box on a spreadsheet. It's digitized and automated, so that speaks to your operational efficiency. And one of the last main problems that most organizations have is a single source of truth. We have scattered tools. Every department's using something different for the same problem. And we have data silos, meaning that there's information in this software in the marketing department, and there's information over there in the finance department, and the HR department's using something completely different. So that single source of truth that kind of works on tearing down those silos of information, and everyone can see everything in one place, and we are running smooth. No redundancies of data and information. No one is losing or spending hours of time looking for the right spreadsheet with the most updated information. So like all of these are common issues that are happening in most organizations, and why we would be adopting a no-code tool, right? So
Mm. Jessica, can you go back to the first slides? Because the first question, and it's a question that I want to ask everyone here today, watching live right now. I know there's a few of you, I can see you. What is the problem that you're solving right now? Because I want you really to reflect throughout this event today and put it down in the chat. Keep, we're going to keep you accountable, but we might also, let's run an experiment. Tell us about the solution that you're trying to solve, that you're trying to build. And maybe by the end of this stream, at the end of this, these 55 minutes here together, maybe Jessica might have a recommendation for you.
yeah.
So that could be a little experiment. Tell us about the solution you're trying to build, and let's see where how we can help you with that.
Yeah, and I might say all these I might have put them into these categories, but sometimes it's really just as simple as we have no idea when someone has completed a task. That's progress tracking and communication, right? So sometimes the words may be different, but it's saying the same problem. You're speaking to the same problems, and these are problems that everyone have. So it's take a look at these different categories and see where your actual problem fit in, right? So maybe it's we're doing everything on paper and we have no time to keep scanning and faxing things. And believe it or not, there are organizations that are still scanning and faxing.
Yeah.
So, so that will bring us into the next question. And just a heads up, like we have 4 questions here. The 4 questions that we have here, number one is the only one that needs to be in order. Everything else could have been asked in any particular order, right? So when we talk about what type of solution you're going to deploy, the main types of solutions are automations, which usually don't have an interface. They happen in the background. They're handling your repeatable tasks. Someone automatically gets an email that you set up weeks ago to say, well, if this environment is at this status, or if this is true, send off this update or this automation or anything else that's repeatable in your organization that you don't necessarily need to engage with in order to update your team about, right? Then there are web apps, and those are usually like portals and cloud-based services that exist on the internet. And then there are native applications that need to exist in maybe an app store in order for you to access the application. And that's not always the case, but more than likely you're going to be working with web apps and automations. Next would be understanding the environment that your solution's going to, the solution that you're adopting. What is really the structure of the organization that you work in? Is this an environment that you can just adopt a tool? You've gotten permission, you can adopt the tool, and then you can, get other teammates on board, or it needs to go through your IT department where everything is secured and user permissions are activated to say who has access to this. Because one of the security is one aspect, But if you're in an organization where you need to pitch your idea or propose it to your higher ups, your boards, and your other stakeholders, budget is going to be the primary aspect that comes into play. How much does it cost? How many people on our team needs to be using it? And so you need to understand who's going to be a paid customer or user on this, and who's just going to be like a viewing customer with external permissions. And why that's important is because then the user permissions will be set up to say who can do what inside of the application or the solution that you choose, right? And lastly, we're going to ask once again, who is a developer? And really, this is just asking, what skill set or skill level does the individual who will develop the solution have? If this is a non-coding individual, these are usually our ops people. They're not always non-coding. They might have some coding or query language under their belt, right? We were chatting about the need for SQL
Yeah.
skill sets, right? Last week. And that's very valid when we're looking at who's hiring for what skill. So this may be coding or non-coding people outside of the IT department. You want to choose a platform that aligns with the developer as far as capability without, and so there's a two-sided coin. You don't want pushback. Whereas we have like our pro coding teams that may use low code platforms that might push back against a platform that is not that is too abstracted, that's too visual, or they feel like it slows them down, right? So non-coding, maybe you might want a platform that is more geared towards configuration, out of the box solution that you can then personalize for your organization yourself with branding and process and other under the hood internal aspects of development. And some coding, that's our low code folks and anyone in between, that and non-coding skills. These individuals probably have they're closer to the pro coding side, but they want to move quickly and do things more visually. So they kind of fall in the middle. Once you understand who the developer is, you're better be able to choose the right platform. And sometimes this is a hybrid team that we need the skill set for both non-coding and low coding, or low coding and pro coding, right? So these are the things you want to take into perspective when you are choosing a platform. And when we're talking about choosing a platform for learning, I can give you a breakdown of the platforms and the types of platforms that you'll need to choose. But if you're choosing a platform for your organization, there are way more questions that you need to ask. There are more items that you need to reference. You're going to reference your proposals and your business cases to justify why you're adopting this tool. And when it comes down to it, you're going to have to stay within the constraints of what your organization gives you. If they give you a limited budget, you need to work with that budget. So ultimately, you may not adopt the best tool to create the best solution to the problem. You may need to adopt the best tool that fits within the constraints that you're given by your organization. And I had a really great conversation yesterday with one of our the ops professionals, Caitlin, who realized that her organization gave her.
From
Yeah,
last week's event. Oh, I love that.
yeah, she was so amazing to talk to. She's like real live. This is happening. Like this is her transitioning into this world right now and seeing like the real live issues and saying, wow, like, you know, figuring out which path to choose, which tool to choose to learn and excel on as a professional. She's amazing.
That's amazing. Just for reference, Caitlin was one of our viewers from last week's episode, and I'm so happy that you were able to connect. Oh, look at that impact there. Love it.
yeah. Yeah, and she's an just awesome person in general. Like just hearing her story and where she's headed with it, it's literally the epitome of what's happening in the workforce. People are realizing that they have problems to solve in their role, and they have to figure out a way. So they're getting active and they're solving it themselves, right? So that kind of speaks to what I was saying about having that permission. And so when we talk about what your organization will allow you to do, sometimes they're not on board because they don't like new stuff, and new stuff is risky. But if you can write a business case or a proposal to speak to what what you envision the outcome to be, speak to the risks. We talked about this a while back, right? About just speaking in the terminology that attracts your higher ups to say, hey, you might be speaking our language, we'll listen some more. And just choosing the right tool that fits in with your organization and the developer seats that'll be on that platform. You might, like I said, you might not always be able to get exactly what you want based on the constraints, which is time and money, mostly
Hmm.
money, but you'll be able to adopt something to assist you with streamlining the way that work happens for you every day.
Absolutely. And we also have a few use cases in the chat. So maybe in a moment when we finish the presentation, we can definitely explore them.
Yeah, let me hustle along. So for for the
No, no, it's fine. It's
beginners,
fine. So good.
no, I definitely want to get to the questions, like help people in a real life way. But these are the recommendations that I would make for anyone that's starting out. And this is really just based on what organizations are already adopting. So if you're going to say, I am coming into the workforce and I'm an ops professional, or I want to be a part of citizen development programming, or come in as an expert, where should I start so that I can spruce up my resume, advance my career, or I want to start my agency and become a partner on one of these platforms? This is where I think you should be starting. For a lot of what we call no code, these are the applications or platforms that are marketed as such for the most part. And to be honest, in the realm of analyzing platforms, some of these platforms would not necessarily make the cut into what no code and low code is. But I feel like no code is itself, the terminology is being redefined by all of these uses, these business uses. So collaborative work management tools probably wouldn't make the cut, but they're common and they're useful, right? So start off with Airtable, which will teach you the skills of how to manage data, user groups, and permissioning. It'll teach you how to integrate and automate, as well as just understanding how relational databases work. And that's like literally the foundation of majority of the application. So like Airtable is a good place to start. Smart Suite, Smart Sheet, similar, not same, but pretty much the idea of managing work with many people involved in updating of statuses, progress tracking, communication, and QuickBase as well. A little bit of a higher learning curve, but the idea is to choose a tool that you're willing to go in on, as far as like becoming very proficient in for your organization or for whichever endeavor you're following. So you won't necessarily be able to like use every single platform. So you choose a main platform, and then there are the ones that become, the adjacent, the ones that amplify your usage, which would be usually our DPA platforms, digital process automation platforms. And that's Make, who is really making their rounds and making sure that they are integrated with almost any and every platform across every industry possible. Make is
Making waves.
Yeah, Make is making waves, right? So, and then also this was like the very first platform that I got on and was just like super amazed and super excited about what it did to advance simple applications. Zapier is making their way heavily into the enterprise space, and I think they're
Hmm.
going to do great stuff. A lot of people use Zapier as it is. And Workato, which is already an enterprise tool, a little bit more of a higher learning curve, but if you're already in the enterprise space and you're in a large ecosystem where Workato manages a lot of automation, and you have the time and space to learn this, Workato is the way to go.
What
Uh,
would you say is the difference there, like from an operator, I don't know, for example, using Make at a small to mid-sized business to like somebody using Zapier at an enterprise level? Like, I don't know, is that something, is there a difference there?
to be honest, there is a difference, you can, when we have tools, just as far as like these digital automation tools that I have on the screen, mind you, there are hundreds of them. The reason why I chose these is because these are the organization, what organizations are using, as well as what agencies are using and what startup grassroots founders are using.
Hmm.
So they can be used across pretty much different markets, and the skill sets vary on who can use these. I'd say Workato is probably the one that probably has more of a higher skill set as far as whether you're able to code. And also, it's used in a different environment. That's the main difference between these, is that they're the environments that they're used in and the type of end user that would use them.
Right.
Yeah. So if we're saying I'm in enterprise, Workato, something that can be managed by your IT department, more than likely integrated. Yeah, remember we were speaking about the different ecosystems. Yeah, probably a Workato. But if you're beginning, low barrier to entry, that's the difference between a lot of these platforms. It will be the barrier to entry as well. With Make and Zapier, you can just go sign up and start learning. They all have trainings available for
Right.
you, right? And and I'd say that's usually the big choice when I see people recommending tools, is that, like, the big difference is that a lot of these tools that are recommended may be great for someone who's like the actual problem they want to solve as far as a developer perspective. Like, I can actually have the skill to build on this platform, but it might not be the best tool economically as you start to scale the solution, right?
Hmm.
So if you're going to build on an enterprise platform, it usually goes by developer seats, volume of use, or how many actual users are on your solution from an end user perspective, right? So if I have 500 signed up users and there's $5 per person, that's a lot of money for someone starting out, right? So we would use a different type of tool,
Right.
right? And that's usually enterprise solutions versus our small business startup solutions, right? And so now that actually moves us into the Power Apps and ServiceNow ecosystem solutions. These are applications that are managed by your IT department and they're built into your ecosystem. So you use Excel, you can go from Excel sheet into integrating that information into a Power App amongst all of the other Microsoft softwares and all the data that comes out of those. And same thing for ServiceNow. These platforms have great training if you're in enterprise space and you're at looking at a skill. Very attractive item to have on your resume. And this, lastly, we have our web apps and our portals. These are where you can actually build out functioning applications that's available to anyone on the web with permission, of course. And we have our internal tools like builders, which are like Retool and Glide, even Knack, Bubble. Really, a lot of entrepreneurs have used it. It's being taught in university. We talked about this a few weeks ago. And so it's
Hmm.
like moving more into the enterprise space as well as software. A lot of agencies use these platforms. So these are your options for beginners. They're all going to teach you front end design, they're going to teach you process and automation logic, and they will teach you relational database modeling and design. Like, pretty much all of these tools do that. So those are the basics of what you need to learn. These are the tools that I would suggest optionally. There are tons of other tools, but these are the ones that also align with the organizations that you may be hired at, right? This is the one that makes you look like an all-star on your resume.
Yeah, and actually, if you think about what we talked briefly about keywords in resumes, which is, I think, is something that we will be talking about next week.
Yeah.
But if you start typing whatever position, whatever role you're looking for, and add either Airtable, Zapier, Make to your search,
Yep.
you will see amazing results, and you will see all the companies that are actively looking for those specific skills. And if you have those specific skills, you're already standing out from any other ops in the same role that doesn't have that no code tag attached to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's pretty much it. That's what we I would recommend for anyone that's beginning. Your The question, like I said, is not what tool to use, but what problem are you trying to solve. And based on the tool that you use, you'll learn everything that you need to know for a beginner.
Absolutely. And for me, like personally, and I don't know about you, maybe you can tell us about your first love with no code. For me personally was Airtable and Zapier, that they were like my combo. And I come from a sort of Webflow web design
Yeah,
background prior to that.
yeah,
So when I started playing with data with Airtable and Zapier, that was just like got me really excited, and
yeah.
I'm still here to tell the tale. So what about you? What was your first love with no code?
My first love was Glide. The first app that I put my hands on was AppSheet for before it was Google, years ago, and then I found Glide, and it just took away. At the moment, I needed to learn how to build an app and not necessarily how to design an app, and a lot of builders really focused on design, front end design. And it's like you want to build an app, and then you realize you sit down in front of the build of the ecosystem and realize that I have to learn how to design this, and you're starting from a blank canvas. And so it gets really intimidating when you're starting. So Glide's a great option to start out with. And I started on Glide when it was like 4 months old. And then I'd say that was my first love for, as far as making something that worked as well as I needed it to work. But the one that I really dove into and took a really long time to move on from was Adalo.
Okay.
Yeah, Adalo, that's when I knew how to develop, and now I wanted to design, and now I wanted to make it
That's
look.
your long-term relationship.
Yeah,
Glide was a fling.
yeah, I guess we could call it that. But Adalo, I mean,
It's the one ex that you always think about.
yeah.
Love
Yeah,
that.
definitely. And they serve different purposes. Adalo is more of a tool for someone that is building like a startup idea. Not to say that it couldn't cross over into enterprise, but Glide has the enterprise tooling, integrations, the permissioning, the things that are important to big companies. And like I said, all these things come into play when we ask the question of which tool do I choose.
Absolutely. And speaking of solutions, like we prompted our audience here to be brave and kind of drop in the chat the solutions that they're building. And I can see two brave people here. Christelle Solomon. Hi, Christelle. Great to have you here. Um, she says, I just joined a new company and I'm working on helping the various ops teams work better. For us, it's process tracking slash communication and single source of truth, leading to operational efficiency.
Yeah.
So let me just pull that comment here. There we go.
Nice. And I'm glad to see that you found the buckets that you fell into. A lot of them, like we said before, overlap, and that will prompt you to try to figure out how do we go from all these moving parts to just this simply operating more efficiently, right? So, as far as, is it Crystal? I'm sorry, is it Crystal?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Crystal. Yeah.
yeah. So what I would like to actually know is working on process that happens before you even get to the tool, Crystal. Definitely work on your process improvement with your team, optimizing before you get to the tool. And that's especially if you're automating things, that's anything that you're putting into an application. Putting it into an application does not make it better. You have to optimize it first and then put it into the application. So definitely good luck with that, Crystal.
Awesome. And I can also see Megan. Megan Lask. Hi, Megan. Great to have you here. Right now, I'm trying to build a system where clients can pay in advance using Clover for a series of appointments and then schedule all of them independently at their leisure. Let me just pull that program here because it keeps on going. Um, Then I have a record of each individual meeting in Airtable, and have it update meeting status automatically to show whether or not it has been scheduled, cancelled, or rescheduled. So, building a system where clients can pay in advance using Clover. Have you used Clover before? Do you know what it is?
I have not. Most of the platforms that we've used have like pre-built integrations to Stripe. But this definitely sounds like you should seek out an automation that integrates with Clover, right? You might not find if Clover doesn't have a pre-built solution for your integration. Um, you can always use webhooks and APIs and push. It's a little bit more work on the technical aspect of it, but definitely this sounds like you need to look at an automation tool more than anything. And when you're looking for an automation tool, sometimes you might find the the automation tool at the right price, but it might not have a direct integration. Take a look at, of course, the ones we just mentioned, which were Make and Zapier, but you might have to look further to see if a platform has a Clover integration out of the box just to make your job and your life easier. If not,
Mm-mm-mm.
you need to hire someone who has higher skill with working with APIs and webhooks and things like that.
Unless she's already using one, because I can see then, she mentions having an automation in her table that changes the status. So maybe
Mhm.
she's already using an automation, and maybe she's just telling us about her project, which sounds really great. I would love to see that. Megan, if you're part of our community, come and show us what your system looks like if you want on our next Tuesday
Yeah.
hangout. I love looking at a nice database and see how that works. Um, awesome. Let me see. Do we have any other? No, no more use cases. Guys, I'm telling you, this is your opportunity to network and meet other fellow innovators. So the more you chat, the more people see you, the more people see you, the more you connect. And Jessica, should I get some of the questions that I've had from our forum? Because I
I'd
know
be
that
happy. Yeah, happy
we
to
have a
answer
few.
questions.
Yeah, we have a few in there, and so I feel like we looked at the forum before starting, so a few of those we already know. But actually, this one here from Paul was really such a good question that we thought, oh, that should have been the title of this session, which was how do you avoid analysis paralysis with so
Yeah.
many apps to choose from? And so I feel like this is what we've been discussing so far. But great question, Paul, and I hope that if you're watching or if you'll watch in the future, this event is going to help you with that. um, Let me see. A question by Praneeth. How to evaluate a tool based on our use cases? Is it okay to pick a tool that misses a couple of use cases but has other pros like UX, CX, etc.?
Okay. Um, yes, it is okay to adopt a tool that misses a few of the preferred marks. I would say take a look at, you would have to prioritize. Prioritize what's more important to you. If you're a client facing tool, usually folks in the more professional environments, UX is not a priority. Like, well, I shouldn't say user experience isn't a priority, but UI isn't a priority. Usually because
Mm-hmm.
that's usually out of the box. It's very simple, blue and white, black and white, lists. That's it, tabular views, and that's enough to get the job done. But it's okay to miss the mark on things that are not a priority to solving the problem and staying within the constraints that your organization has given you.
Great. Yeah, absolutely agree. And I like that you corrected yourself there. Like UX is definitely, I think,
Different.
important. Yeah, definitely important,
Very
definitely a priority. The
important.
UI, not as much. Um, but awesome. And we have a question here from Nicole. What is your favorite best method for getting up to speed quickly on a new tool?
I go in and I try to build something.
Get
That's
your
pretty
hands dirty.
Yeah, the most simple application that you can build is an information application, which is the foundation of every application. It gives you, you can view information. If you can get in there, pull in a spreadsheet and put something together in an hour or so, that you have a great starting point with the tool. If you can't figure out where things are, the experience is a little bit shaky for someone who is not proficient in the platform. I'd probably move on to the next tool. It might be what you need. Sometimes you need to dive a little deeper, look at documentation, but that's usually what I look at. Can I just get in there without looking at the docs or looking at videos and build something?
And speaking of building an app or an application, I just I mean, not realized, I just remembered that we mentioned that you're one of our educators at No Code Ops Academy, and I seem to remember that your course specifically has a sort of build an application a process, right? Did you
Yeah.
wanna? Why don't you just give us a little plug? Tell us
Yeah.
about your course.
Yeah. So the amazing team at the No Code Ops Academy.
No, it's about you, not about us.
They've allowed me to definitely put together a course for you guys. And the course really focuses less on the actual what tool you're using and more on the process of development, because I believe that that's where most people get stuck. Where do I start? How do I go from problem to deciding on solution, prioritizing features, and satisfying my what my manager wants me to do, and solving an actual problem, and going from problem, solution to product. And those things are all different and they're translated differently. And there's just a process to it that can overwhelm us if we don't know what the steps are, right? So we actually go through planning out our database, relational database modeling, and we make our schema, and then we go into our user flow, and we use Glide. We use Glide to get in there and create like I said, an information application. In this case, it's a tool to show you what your operating functions are in your organization for every individual and who's on your team. And it shows you the basics of how to use Glide, right? And how to visualize data from your database. So yeah, that's what the training is about. And you can definitely find it at the No Code Ops community webpage, right? That's linked.
Absolutely. And I mean, you just see how amazing Jessica is, so we don't have to stress the importance of her course. Just go ahead and check it out.
Yeah.
I love this question by Piotr. So what are the risks of choosing badly? Because we've been talking a lot about, making the right choice or what to think when picking a no-code tool.
Mhm.
But what happens when you actually make the wrong choice? When you have that toxic relationship. I love the analogy with it's like our love for
Yeah.
no code today.
Uh, this is actually a really good question because I've seen it recently. Making a poor adoption choice is costly more than anything.
Mm,
And when you make the wrong choice, one, it it diminishes trust, one, within your organization, your ability to be an expert. That's why we lay out this framework of just the first four questions. And when you make the wrong choice for your entire organization, when you have a cost like that, that also sets you back, right? Because everything that happens in an organization has a budget and it also has a timeline. So it sets you back in time, it sets you back in costs, as well as it leaves the problem hanging in the balance. So when the problem is still hanging in the balance and we're still trying to figure things out, it costs even more money than the cost of just adopting the wrong tool, right? So I mean, I guess money is the biggest issue.
yeah,
Which is
your company is definitely going to care a
yeah,
little bit. Not
yeah,
not too much room for experiments there.
yeah,
And speaking of security, like we talk a lot about security issues with no code. How do the no-code tools handle data encryption, user authentication, and other security protocols? Question by Susan.
yeah.
Just gonna copy
So
here.
a lot of the platforms today, they're a little bit more transparent about how they handle security and compliance authentication. A lot of the solutions that are out there, they have single sign-on options, they have user permissioning, different levels of security. So from authentication into the actual permissioning built into the ecosystem, and the other data security options like SOC 2 and SOC 3 compliance. You'll see those on the website because those are actually like reasons to buy in to a platform versus those platforms that don't necessarily have those certifications. Not all of them have it, but the larger ones that are more mature and have particular types of clientele and use cases, they know that that's something that's primary to the use. So you'll be able to find them. They'll be on the website in big, bold certification section of all the great things that they're from HIPAA compliance, which is a really big one, PCI compliance, and of course SOC 2 and SOC 3 compliance.
Nice. I love that you know all those protocols. I'm like, yeah, we'll read them on the website. Question from Shane. Shane. Front versus backend slash admin tools. Where should we be focusing on?
Okay. I'm going to assume that admin tools are kind of like collaborative work management tools where,
Or databases, like, because he's slashing it with backend. I don't know. I wonder if it's like
okay,
more.
I see. So backend slash admin tools. Okay. I can see now what he's trying to say. Okay. So the focus as a no code ops professional or a citizen developer, if anyone doesn't know this by now, we wear all the hats. We wear all the hats. We have to be familiar with the front end and the logic on the front end, how it connects to process on the back end. I personally like the back end. That is where you'll find me lost and buried under some sort of data or information or something like that, and the process that goes along with the back end. But if your team is split up by roles, like a traditional development team where you have someone that focuses on front end logic, JavaScript, CSS, or anything like that, if you have those skills and that's where you excel, then I would say focus on front end. But when I begin the development of any solution, I begin with security, authentication, and how that applies to the back end. The flow of data and how we secure this for our end users and through our admin portals, if that's applicable. I definitely focus on back end first.
Yeah, sort of the skeleton of
Yep.
anything else that gets built upon. Yeah.
Yeah, I typically and everyone's different. I typically utilize a loosely coupled stack where my backend will be separate from everything else that I'm using. So then, as the application matures, we might want a simple front end. Maybe we might want to start with Glide, where we don't need to focus on design, right? And it already makes a beautiful UI. And then we might want to, when we get super mature, move to something that is coded, or even something like Bubble where you have a lot of control of the front end, or Webflow where you have control of the front end and you can integrate. So me personally, it's a little bit of a higher learning curve, but I love Xano, I love Supabase, and those are SQL based, Postgres based backends. They stand alone, and I think that they're great with just taking your endpoints and putting them wherever you need them to be. So if that's your bag and you feel like you're going to excel there, well, that's where you'll find me. But
Have you built like little solutions with all these tools? Because I'm fascinated by the wealth of knowledge that you have on all the tools, and like it's
it's
beautiful to see.
overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, but you were saying earlier, the best way for you to pick one up is to try and do something with it.
Yeah,
So that's what
I
you
spend,
did, just like.
yeah, spend a lot of time testing tools, and from the perspective of a person that does not code,
Mm.
right? So that's where my biases lie, right? And eventually working with other developers who have more advanced skills, I start to move into the space of how does this look for a hybrid team that has non-coding and coding expertise on the team? How do we start? And this is where most organizations start to talk, like they're talking about development operations and CI/CD, right? So how do we start to build on our solution over time and continuous improvement and things like that? So that's how I eventually got to that point. But in the beginning, it was like I have to find. My job used to be to find the perfect tool for this student to build their app, and so I just always spend a little bit of time in everything.
That's so cool. Such a cool job as well. I think
Yes.
you're gonna be my in-house guest, permanent speaker, because our something that I want to do, I guess, in 2025 maybe, it's really focus on how to close up that gap between operations professionals and IT teams, for example. So how do we break that wall in between, and how do we get them to understand each other a little bit more and talk a little bit more. That's going to be our 2025 focus. I think, I don't know, I'm just saying it now, but I think that's where we're heading, just like as a community, but also as professionals. Like we are curious, we're hungry to know about all these tools and like how to develop these solutions. And so I think it's going to be really important for us to master that skill.
I agree. It is. It's a big initiative, and I think that you touched on something that we've touched on a little bit here is that how to get them to understand one another. And I just think it's exactly that. They're speaking different languages and most of the time saying the same thing. So if that's the initiative, I'm with you on it.
No codes lost in translation. That's going to be our
Yeah.
new series. Awesome. We've got a nice use case here from Asher. Hi, Asher. I've built a fairly successful tool at my work, mainly via Coda and Zapier. It's more popular now and even has a wait list for implementing. That's cool. Well done, Asher. Drop a link in the chat if you want. What are
Yeah.
some things to consider for scalability? So that's a really great use case because we do get a lot of like people that build solutions, tools, and sooner or later they want to scale. How do we scale no code?
Scaling no code is it's not actually hard. It's just some things you need to take into consideration. It always comes back to access to resources, first of all, especially since Asher is building something for at work, right? So it's access to resources and support. That's the first foundational thing that you need. If your organization is giving you the time and space to build, as well as the money, and it doesn't impede on anything else that you're doing at work, that's the first thing. As far as the actual application itself, like I said, I usually like to choose backend systems that have can you can work within its infancy. But I think that that's the first place to begin. Look at your backend, your security, and what it looks like as it scales. So we're going to be looking at bandwidth, the cost of that bandwidth, right? And I'm sorry that I keep coming back to cost, but I just want you guys to
It's
understand,
important.
yeah, that is a primary issue in consideration when we're talking about bringing on tools to your stakeholders that have probably have no idea what no code is. You want to speak their language. So I would say definitely look at a backend system that is uh, interoperability is very important. Does this integrate with the existing tool chain? Does it apply, like follow the compliances of your organization as far as mitigating risk and making sure that data is private and all those things that we talked about before, right? So scalability, feasibility, reliability on your tools, for your tools integrating with the other tools that already exist, right? So those are some topics you may want to look into.
Absolutely. Asher, I hope that helps. And again, let us know what amazing tool you're building. I'm really curious to see.
Yeah, I would love to know more details so I can give you a more like finite answer on what you can look at tools wise.
And also, let me share Jessica's profile because, like just like what we saw at the beginning of this stream, turns out that keeps on delivering value outside of our stream, so you can connect with her. Let me just find her profile. In the meantime, as well, we are a free community providing you with these amazing streams every week, and so it costs you nothing. Drop a like and subscribe to this channel, support the community, spread the word about our community. That would help me and everyone here a lot. And so if you're enjoying our content, please do share some support, share some love. And Jessica, as I get your profile, can
Mhm.
you tell us something about next week's stream? And it's going to be our last one, so I'm really sad.
Yeah. This one's pretty exciting for me because it's been my primary initiative in the past few years as I'm realizing that, no code has taken me on a journey of being hired into positions that I didn't know were looking for me in the skills that I have. And I've been focusing a lot on what it takes to get no code really widely known and available in the workforce, and just what that looks like for recruiting people like us, right? So we're a little bit more active than the average employee we would be a prize in any organization, right?
We're a
So
pain in the
yeah,
we're a pain in the
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, that's true. But we do bring good stuff along with all that pain. So
Absolutely.
next week, the focus really is on how do we, translate our skills that we learn from all these no code platforms. How do we put this on our resume so that we actually stand out? And how are we appealing to the organizations that are looking for us that but don't know how to really capture that in a job description? Right. And with that being said, we're taking into consideration that most organizations use ATS software that is looking at the resume first and what keywords we would be using in order to make sure that we stand out at the top of the list.
Absolutely, absolutely. Amazing. So, Jessica, always a pleasure. You really make my week every time that we talk. I love learning with you. Um, how can we end the stream today? What's one final piece of advice that you would like to share? And yeah, let's hear
Yeah.
about the advice first.
For anyone that's starting out new, whether you just have your own personal app idea or you're at work, take a look around you and see where the problems are, right? And then when you find a problem, go find an app or a solution to solve that problem. Go test it out if it allows you to sign up and go make something. Okay. That's my advice to you. Go make something.
I love that so much. And I guess to finish off our love analogy today, do you have a secret crush that you want to share? All to do with code and no code, of course.
Yeah, my secret favorite. I always have the shirt on. People look at me funny sometimes. Uh, Flutterflow is one of my secret favorites. I have not been able to be. It's a bias, but check out Flutterflow if you're willing to, work with something that has a little bit higher of a learning curve and can produce a great mobile app for you. Check out Flutterflow.
Amazing. Don't worry, I won't tell Adalo or all the others. Awesome. Well, Jessica, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. And everyone else here in the community, I will see you in our Discord. Take care, everyone. Bye.